They thought you were quiet, slow, and unaware, but guess what? You were just observing. And now, chosen one, the mask is off. People often misunderstand silence. In a loud world where attention is mistaken for value, being quiet can be seen as weak. But here's the twist. They got it wrong, massively wrong. Chosen ones are often misjudged because they don't move with the crowd, don't speak unless there's something worth saying, and don't waste energy explaining what doesn't need to be justified. What others miss is that this silence isn't emptiness, it's awareness. Psychological research shows that introverted individuals tend to possess stronger internal reflection, deeper empathy, and sharper observational skills. In fact, studies in neuroscience have found that people who spend more time in quiet introspection have increased activity in the default mode network of the brain, an area associated with problem solving and complex thought. So when you're watching, when you're listening, when you're silent, it's not passive, it's preparation. And that's what throws them off. Like the lion in the tall grass, like the storm that builds before it breaks, you've been hiding power behind stillness. Why? Because real wisdom doesn't seek applause. Real intelligence isn't loud, it's precise. Just like in the story of Myra, that quiet girl who was overlooked until her brilliance had no choice but to shine. Your life has been a slow reveal. People saw your calm demeanor and labeled you weak. But beneath that calm was calculation, perception, and strength. You've been reading between the lines while others were still sounding out the letters. You see, chosen one, your intelligence is not limited to facts and figures, it's multidimensional. You operate with emotional intelligence, knowing who to trust, when to speak, and when to walk away. That's not luck, that's discernment. You have spiritual intelligence, sensing when something is off, hearing what's not said, and feeling what others try to hide. That's divine insight. You don't just know things, you them, and that makes all the difference. People have tried to make you feel less than because they couldn't see what was more. But remember this, when someone can't match your depth, they often try to diminish it. Let's go back to that quote. Sometimes people try to expose what's wrong with you because they can't handle what's right about you. That's the truth. And it explains so much. Why they mock you, why they question you, why they try to poke holes in your peace. Because your stillness makes them uncomfortable. Your silence forces them to face themselves. Your intelligence, wrapped in humility, disrupts the illusion they're trying to maintain. So this video is your reminder. You're not slow, you're strategic, you're not unaware, you're discerning, and you're not weak. You've just been hiding strength behind stillness, and now it's time to walk boldly in that truth. Let them talk, let them wonder. Let them catch up, because you, chosen one, have already seen what they haven't even begun to look for. You're not here to fit in. You're here to lead, to awaken, and to rise. Let's go, genius. Your time has come. Point one, you read the room like a spiritual decoder. Chosen ones, your intelligence isn't ordinary, and it never was. It's not about how many degrees you have or how well you can quote academic journals. Your brilliance is energetic, it's spiritual, it's deeply intuitive. You walk into a room and you don't just see people, you feel them, you sense their vibrations, you notice the tension before a single word is spoken. You feel when someone's smile doesn't match their frequency. That's not paranoia, that's discernment, that's God-level awareness. That's the type of intelligence that can't be taught in classrooms, only refined through spiritual awakening and divine alignment. They thought you were quiet because you had nothing to say. They thought your silence was weakness. But little did they know your silence was a radar. While they were talking to impress, you were scanning. While they were performing, you were observing. You don't need to expose anybody because energy always reveals the truth. People's intentions leak through their aura, and you read that aura like scripture. That's why your presence alone makes people nervous. You haven't said a word, but their soul feels exposed. Why? Because just by being, you're reflecting the truth they've been trying to bury. Your intelligence has clarity, and clarity is uncomfortable for those who live in confusion. There's a reason why Proverbs 2:6 says, "For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding." This isn't just poetic, it's prophetic. You were born with a different kind of knowing. It's divine. It's the kind of insight that bypasses logic and goes straight to the soul. You just know things. Sometimes you don't even know how you know, you just do. And let's be real, that freaks people out. It disturbs their carefully constructed facades, because in your presence their lies can't hide. When you walk in truth, lies get nervous, gossip gets louder, envy gets more subtle. But don't take it personally, chosen ones. That reaction is just proof of your spiritual impact. Science has a term for this too. It's called empathic accuracy, the ability to accurately infer the thoughts and feelings of others. Most people have it at an average level, but you, chosen one, operate on a supernatural frequency. Empaths like you aren't just emotional, they're energetically tuned. You pick up on micro-expressions, subtle shifts, and spiritual dissonance. You might not know someone's life story, but you'll feel their shadow the moment they enter your space. You're not nosy, you're just tuned in. You weren't meant to fit in, chosen one. You were meant to see through, to cut through illusion with your God-given vision. The world praises loudness, but your quiet knowing, that's the real flex. That's the divine intelligence that separates you from the crowd. And it's not arrogance, it's awareness. When people say you're too intense, they really mean you see too much. When they say you're doing too much, they mean you're triggering what I haven't healed. That's the role of the chosen one, to reveal what others are too afraid to face. You didn't study for this power, it was given to you, and that's why it can't be replicated. You're not just smart chosen ones, you're anointed. You're a walking confirmation that God still speaks, still moves, and still chooses vessels to carry his light. You may not always feel understood, but your understanding, it's out of this world, quite literally. So don't shrink. Don't second guess what your spirit knows. Don't dim your inner knowing just to make others feel comfortable in their illusion. Your intelligence isn't just rare, it's holy, a gift, a responsibility, and whether they admit it or not, they feel it. Every room you enter, every conversation you have, every truth you stand on, it shifts the atmosphere. That's power, that's you. Point 2, your emotional control confuses them. You don't yell, you don't curse, you don't throw things or storm out when things go left, and that mystifies people. See, we live in a world that expects drama as a form of communication. Many have been conditioned to believe that the louder you are, the more right you must be. But you, Earth Angel, you don't play that game. You don't overreact because you've mastered emotional alchemy. You've trained your nervous system to stay cool in the fire, and that unsettles those who rely on chaos to feel in control. They poke, they prod, and they push your buttons just to get a rise out of you. But you sit still, you breathe, you listen, and in that silence they hear the loudest truth. You are not controlled by them. That's unsettling. They don't know how to handle someone who doesn't flinch, and so they get louder and more desperate, trying to break through your peace like a battering ram against a steel door. But what they don't know is your silence isn't passive, it's intentional. Behind that calm exterior is a mind processing every word, measuring every move, and calculating the deeper meaning behind every interaction. This, my dear chosen ones, is called spiritual intelligence, or spiritual IQ. It's not talked about enough, but it's as real as any emotional or intellectual intelligence. People with high spiritual IQ don't react impulsively. They understand the vibration behind things. You know the energy behind words, the frequency of intention, and the power of withholding a reaction. You've learned that sometimes the best clapback is stillness. Not because you're weak, but because you've learned that rage is often weakness in disguise, a mask for insecurity, fear, or a lack of control. True power, that's restraint. That's discernment. That's choosing when and how to respond, if at all. This isn't just spiritual fluff either. There's science to it. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational decision-making, is stronger in people who practice mindfulness and self-regulation. Meanwhile, those who are reactive often operate from the amygdala, the primal fear-driven part of the brain that screams survive every time it feels attacked. You, however, have graduated from survival mode to alignment mode. You don't just survive situations, you transcend them. So when they throw emotional traps at you, when they try to bait you with passive aggression, guilt, manipulation, or outrage, you just watch. Not because you're detached, but because you value your peace more than proving a point. You've learned that not every battle deserves your energy, and that reaction is expensive. It costs clarity, integrity, and sometimes even your destiny. You're not paying that price anymore. They mistake your composure for indifference. but really you're just spiritually wealthy. You don't spend your emotional currency on anything that doesn't serve your soul. That's rare, that's powerful, and it's why they don't know what to do with you. They're used to people cracking under pressure. You turn pressure into purpose. Your energy is sacred. Your silence, strategic. Your calm presence in the middle of madness, that's divine intelligence at work. So let them be confused. Let them try to figure you out. While they're stuck in chaos, you're walking in peace, and that's the real power play. Point 3, you learn by observation, not just instruction, chosen ones. Let's get real. You're not the kind of soul who needs step-by-step instructions or 10 bullet points to understand the assignment. You feel your way through life with a level of knowing that can't be taught in classrooms or downloaded from Google. You observe everything, body language, energy shifts, subtle tones, and you connect dots most people don't even know exist. It's like your soul has a built-in satellite dish that picks up spiritual signals while others are still trying to find the Wi-Fi password. That's not just intuition, baby. That's divine intelligence. That's spiritual discernment. You're tuned into a higher frequency, and that freaks people out more than they're willing to admit. Have you ever noticed how people start acting funny around you? It's not because you said something. It's not even because you did something. It's because you see something. You walk in the room and suddenly their insecurities start scrambling for cover. Why? Because your very presence calls out the energy they've been hiding behind. It's like spiritual X-ray vision. You see past the masks, the small talk, and the fake laughter. You don't even try to expose them, but your existence alone is exposure. And that unnerves people who've made comfort zones out of pretending. See, while others are reading surface-level instructions, you're downloading sacred blueprints in silence. This is what the ancient mystics called gnosis, knowledge from within. It's the ability to just know without needing explanation. It's what separates the chosen ones from the crowd. While they're busy memorizing information, you're aligning with wisdom. That's why you can step into a new environment and thrive without guidance. You don't need someone to hand you a manual. The Spirit already whispered the map into your soul before you even arrived. And here's the kicker. They thought you were slow. They really did, because you didn't jump at every chance to speak, because you didn't fight to be seen, because you were quiet, observing, letting your spirit gather data. But what they mistook for slowness was divine strategy. You were listening, learning, storing every detail, and now that you're rising, they don't know how to handle it. The same mouths that used to mock you are suddenly silent, or worse, starting to spread gossip. Because when truth walks in, lies get loud. People hate what they can't explain, and you, Earth Angel, are unexplainable. Your glow doesn't come from status or achievements. It comes from the fact that you walk in alignment with God's purpose. Your intelligence is spiritual, your instincts are divine, and your silence is sacred. That's why they can't stand you, but they can't stop watching you either. They want to know your secret. But the secret isn't something you say, it's something you are. So don't shrink, don't over-explain. Don't waste time trying to prove what God already confirmed. Keep moving in your mystery, keep showing up with that quiet confidence. Keep listening to those divine downloads. Because while they're still talking about what they think you are, you're becoming everything you were destined to be without ever saying a word. Point 4. You outsmart narcissists without breaking a sweat. Oh, chosen ones, let's talk about why you make narcissists squirm in their seats. You walk into a room calm and grounded while their ego throws a silent tantrum. You don't yell, don't expose, and don't even bother with the drama, and yet your mere presence disrupts everything they try to control. Why? Because you see them. You really see them. Beneath the flattery, the grandiosity, the crocodile tears, and their fake humility, you sense the manipulation pulsing like a warning siren. It's not paranoia, it's spiritual discernment. And chosen ones have it at level infinity. See, narcissists thrive on illusion. They survive by crafting stories that place them at the center, always the victim, the hero, or the misunderstood genius. But when you step into their sphere, that mask starts to crack. You're not dazzled by the love bombing. You don't fall for the pity stories. You see the red flags not as decoration, but as danger. You ask quiet, piercing questions. You observe instead of react, and while others are tangled in the narcissist's web, you're already looking for the scissors. That kind of awareness, it's terrifying to them. According to psychology, narcissists need something called narcissistic supply. Constant validation, admiration, attention, and emotional reaction. That's what keeps their fragile ego inflated. But when you don't give them that, when you're unimpressed, silent, or God forbid, walking away without a single tear, you're not just rejecting them. You're starving their entire existence. And it's not because you're heartless. It's because you're wise. You've likely already danced with a narcissist or two before, maybe a parent, a boss, or a romantic partner. You know the pattern, the initial charm, the idealization, the slow erosion of your self-worth, the gaslighting, the blame shifting, the guilt trips, and the silent treatment. You've lived it. You healed from it. And now, you can spot it in 5 seconds flat. That intuition is not just experience. It's part of your divine coding. Chosen ones carry a spiritual sensitivity that doesn't just detect energy. It reads intentions. Your soul knows when something's off, even when the words sound right. And here's the beautiful part. You don't even need to fight. You don't need to expose the narcissist. You don't need revenge. You just leave. Your exit is your power move. It's the moment they realize the game is over. Because the only winning strategy against manipulation is not playing at all, and it drives them absolutely mad. They'll rage, they'll slander, they'll tell people you're cold, heartless, or too sensitive. But you're sipping your peace like herbal tea, watching them spiral. Why? Because your intelligence protects you. Not just mental smarts, but soul wisdom, emotional intelligence, and spiritual insight. You know your worth, your power, and your purpose. And narcissists can't manipulate someone who no longer needs external validation. The truth is, chosen ones, narcissists aren't just scared of being seen, they're terrified of being seen by someone who doesn't flinch. You don't play by their rules, you don't beg for love, you don't barter your boundaries, and that makes you unpredictable, untouchable, unbothered. So keep walking with that quiet power. Keep reading the room while they try to perform. Let your wisdom be the mirror they can't escape. Because the greatest punishment to a narcissist is not your anger, it's your absence. And the greatest revenge, it is being exactly who they said you couldn't be, healed, whole and free. Point 5, you speak when it matters most. You're not one for small talk or empty chatter, and that confuses people. In a world obsessed with noise, your silence makes them nervous. But here's the truth, they've misunderstood you from the beginning. What looked like shyness was actually strategy. What they called awkward was simply observation. You weren't avoiding the spotlight, you were learning the rhythm of the room. Now when you speak, it's not to fill space, it's to shift it. Your words land with the weight of intention. They echo, not because you're loud, but because you're real. This is the power of calibrated communication, something that ancient philosophers and modern psychologists alike celebrate. The Greek Stoics taught logos, reasoned, deliberate speech, believing that the wise speak only when it improves the silence. Modern studies in linguistics and behavioral science show the same. Those who speak less but with purpose are often perceived as more intelligent, charismatic, and trustworthy. That's what you've mastered, often without realizing it. You understand that words are energy, and throwing them around carelessly drains their power. So instead of reacting impulsively, you respond with surgical precision, cutting through confusion like a blade of truth. And oh, how the tables have turned. Once they mocked you for being too quiet, too intense, and too serious. They laughed when you didn't jump into meaningless debates. They thought silence meant weakness, but now they lean in when you speak. They replay your sentences in their minds. That same stillness they once misread now commands the room. Because you've tapped into the art of timing, that ancient, unteachable skill that separates noise from impact. Like a lightning strike in a silent sky, your words arrive when they're least expected and most needed. Not many can do that. This isn't just intelligence, it's wisdom wrapped in humility, a rare combination in a world fueled by ego and overexposure. Intelligence is knowing the facts. Wisdom is knowing when and how to share them. And you? You don't flex knowledge for validation. You serve truth for transformation. You're not here to prove a point. You're here to elevate the conversation. And that's why people don't just listen to you, they feel you. It's also why you're dangerous to the superficial, because you see through fluff. You don't entertain drama or gossip or debates that lead nowhere. That makes the insecure feel exposed. While others use 100 words to say nothing, you use one sentence to end the argument. And you don't do it with rage. You do it with calm, measured, almost surgical delivery, reminding everyone that still waters run deep. That's not just communication. That's presence. That's mastery. In truth, you're not interested in being heard just for the sake of it. You're interested in being understood. And ironically, that's what makes you unforgettable. You don't waste time on surface-level talk because you dwell in depth. That's why people bring you their problems, not their gossip. They sense something in you, clarity, peace, strength. They don't know how to describe it, but they trust it. And trust, Earth Angel, is the highest currency in human connection. So don't ever let this world convince you to speak more just to be noticed. You were never meant to be loud. You were meant to be true. And when you deliver truth, clean, sharp, and full of grace, there's no need to shout. The whole room listens, because real power doesn't raise its voice, it raises the frequency. Point 6, you see through systems, not just people. Chosen ones, let's go higher, because your elevation isn't just spiritual, it's intellectual. While the masses are plugged into surface-level narratives, following trends and echoing headlines, you're doing something far more revolutionary. You're thinking. You're seeing the patterns behind the chaos. You're recognizing that history has never been a clean story. It's a web of control mechanisms, power plays, hidden agendas, and psychological operations. And when do you start seeing that? Oh, you terrify the system, not because you're loud, but because you're awake. You see, when they call you a conspiracy theorist, it's not because you're wrong, it's because you're inconvenient. It's easier to label someone crazy than to confront the discomfort of their truth. You've learned that governments don't always act in the people's best interest and that media doesn't just report, it programs. You've noticed how fear is constantly recycled to keep the population anxious and distracted. From pandemics to politics, from race wars to celebrity scandals, it's all a grand distraction machine. And you zoomed out, you asked questions, you connected dots. Not because you're paranoid, but because your discernment was activated. And let's be real, chosen ones. Discernment is a divine gift. The Bible says, test all things, hold fast to what is good. 1 Thessalonians 5:21. That's not paranoia, that's wisdom, that's spiritual radar. You weren't put here to nod your head and blend in. You were born to shake the illusion. That's why you don't just see lies, you see systems. You see how every institution, from school to religion to entertainment, is carefully engineered to mold your beliefs, shape your self-image, and keep you compliant. You see how consumerism replaces purpose, how division distracts from unity, and how fear is used like a leash. You weren't supposed to notice, but you did. And here's the wild part. When truth starts to crack the surface, lies scramble for cover. That's why people talk. That's why you get labeled, ghosted, and laughed at. It's not because you've lost your way. It's because you've left theirs. You're not rebellious, you're revelatory. Your existence challenges the script. While others are playing roles handed to them, you're rewriting the entire scene. You're not content with surface answers, you dig deeper. You know that real truth isn't found in headlines, it's whispered through silence, through patterns, through intuition. Educationally speaking, the psychological phenomenon here is called cognitive dissonance. When someone encounters information that threatens their worldview, they often reject it. Not because it's false, but because it's uncomfortable. You, Earth Angel, are that discomfort. Your insight creates tension in their carefully curated realities, and instead of evolving, many people attack the source of their discomfort, you. But here's what makes you powerful. You don't need everyone to agree. You're not asking for permission to think. You're not seeking validation to question. You're not interested in applause. You're on a mission for truth, for clarity, for God-given alignment. You walk the narrow path, even when it's lonely, because you know the wide path leads to destruction and delusion. So no, you're not crazy, you're calibrated, you're not rebellious, you're reconnected. While others are hypnotized by flashing screens and curated content, you're tuning into something eternal. You're waking up to the fact that being chosen means seeing what others refuse to see and still choosing love, still choosing truth, even when it costs you everything. That's the real revolution. And it's not loud, it's not violent, it's consciousness. So keep your head up, chosen ones. Keep decoding, keep watching. Keep questioning, because in a world full of programmed minds, the one who thinks freely is the most dangerous of all. Point 7. You turn pain into wisdom. Let's talk about your superpower, chosen ones. Transformation. Not the kind that sparkles on the outside with new clothes or a fancy title, but the kind that rewires the soul, the kind that only warriors of the spirit can survive. While others collapsed under pressure, lost themselves in chaos, or numbed their wounds with distractions, you walked through the fire with open eyes. You didn't ask for it, but when the pain came, you didn't let it destroy you. You let it instruct you. You let it shape you. You became a master alchemist, turning heartbreak into healing, betrayal into boundaries, and failure into a foundation. Every time life knocked you down, you didn't just get up, you leveled up. And here's what most people miss. Transformation isn't about pretending you're okay. It's about facing your darkness so fiercely that the light has no choice but to break through. It's about knowing that grief can grow you, that disappointment can redirect you, and that rock bottom can be a rebirth. That's not weakness. That's spiritual genius. Psychologists now recognize this process as post-traumatic growth, the phenomenon where individuals emerge from trauma with increased strength, clarity, and purpose. You didn't just survive trauma, you transcended it. And now they look at you with wide eyes, whispering behind your back. How did they get so wise? How are they glowing like that? What happened to them? They don't know that while they were dodging their demons, you sat with yours and listened. They don't see the nights you cried out to the universe for answers, the mornings you journaled your way out of despair, or the moments you chose to forgive even when it hurt. You didn't need a stage or a mentor or a gold star. Life was your teacher, and the curriculum was brutal. But you passed with quiet excellence, never needing to prove anything, just becoming everything. Transformation is not a moment, it's a mindset, a series of choices to evolve instead of escape. And you, Earth Angel, chose to evolve over and over again, which is why you're not just strong. You're sacred. You didn't just grow, you awakened. Your mind expanded, your spirit sharpened, and now you move with an intelligence that can't be faked. A divine intuition that confuses people who never left the shallow end of their own lives. And here's the kicker. You were always this intelligent, always this gifted, always this deep. They just weren't ready to see it. Maybe your wisdom made them uncomfortable. Maybe your light exposed what they were trying to hide. Maybe your evolution reminded them that staying the same is a choice, but now they can't deny it. You walk into rooms and shift the energy. You speak truth and people get quiet. You exist fully, boldly, authentically, and it rattles those still pretending. Because your transformation is a mirror. It reflects what others aren't ready to face. And instead of celebrating you, they project onto you, but don't let that shake you. Remember, real growth often gets misread as arrogance. Real healing gets mistaken for distance. And real self-respect, it's often seen as rebellion by those who benefited from your silence. So stand tall, chosen one, because your rise isn't just about you. It's about awakening those who silently watch and wonder how you keep going. You didn't transform to get praise, likes, or validation. You evolved because something deep within you, your soul, demanded more. And that kind of transformation, that's not just personal growth, that's divine intelligence. It's the rare ability to turn wounds into wisdom and setbacks into stepping stones. Studies in psychology call this the phenomenon where individuals emerge from hardship stronger, more resilient, and more focused on meaning in life. But you've taken it even further. You didn't just bounce back, you broke through. While others stayed stuck in cycles of bitterness or blame, you chose to rewrite the narrative. And what's more powerful than that? You didn't wait for someone to give you permission to heal, to lead, or to shine. You gave that permission to yourself. That is spiritual maturity. That is divine clarity. Chosen ones, your intelligence isn't just academic or logical, it's sacred. The world may have called you weird, intense, or too deep, but heaven called you prepared. While others chase surface success, you're out here building something eternal. Character, integrity, and vision. And now, the same people who overlooked you are starting to notice. The way you carry yourself, the way you don't need the spotlight because you the light. They whisper, they doubt, they stare, but let them. Because while they were sleeping on you, you were waking up to who you truly are. And that awakening, that's not arrogance, that's awareness. You've learned how to move in silence, not because you're afraid, but because you understand power doesn't need to announce itself. Real wisdom doesn't scream it. You've been glowing from within, fueled by purpose, not popularity. Studies have shown that people who operate from a strong internal locus of control, meaning they believe they are in charge of their lives, tend to be more successful, confident, and fulfilled. That's you. You don't live by the world's script. You live by a higher calling. And your intelligence, it's not about how many books you've read, but how many times you've read the room and chosen peace over pettiness, growth over gossip, purpose over popularity. So keep learning, keep evolving, because your intelligence is a spiritual force. It's been shaped in the fire of adversity and baptized in the waters of faith. And baby, it's only just beginning. Stay awake on your journey. Don't let the world's noise drown out your soul's clarity. Never dim your light just to make others comfortable. The truth is, you don't need to prove anything to anyone. You the proof. Proof that intelligence doesn't always come with loud words or fancy degrees. Sometimes it comes in the quiet power of someone who knows who they are, walks in love, and leaves behind a trail of light. You, chosen one, are that kind of rare, that's kind of divine, that kind of unstoppable. You don't need to roar. Sometimes the wisest thing you'll ever do is simply smile and walk away.